Gonna do a few test shots. This bow came out to be, right now it's 43 pounds at 26 inches. Give it about 50 shots and move on to the finish work. Okay, I've shot the bow a few dozen times. It's actually a great shooter. I like this one. Time for some finish work. For a primitive finish, I would just stop right here and put a few coats of grease into this wood. Don't grease the sinew though. I'm gonna finish it up a little more fancy here. Start with 120 grit, go to 220, 320, 400. Give it a good shine. In between all the coats of sanding with the grain, I'm gonna wet it down with a damp cloth, and that should raise the grain up to make a smoother finish, the sanding. The bow's 52 inches long, still drawn 43 pounds at 26 inches of draw. After the finish work, it should still be, it might take off a pound or so, but it's still going to be a little over 40. And after the shooting yesterday, it still maintains a little more than 4 inches of reflex. Okay, we're back to the finish work. I've got this sanded all the way down to 400 grit. It's quite smooth. I put on a very light, thinned out application of a homemade stain. It's made from vinegar and dissolved steel wool. It darkened the juniper very little. Basically what it does is really brings out the grain. You can really see the growth rings from the little bit of discoloration. This pitch, if you collect fresh runny pitch, you can also, it was used as a paint binder for the beautiful paddle bows of Northern California. You can mix it with mineral and earth pigments and use it to paint, and then cover it with a coat, which does a bit to waterproof the sinew backing. In modern days, you can use tongue oil on the back and belly, and to put a coat of shellac on the sinew will also further waterproof it. Added a sinew wrap to the tips just to fortify them a little. Next step, I'm going to take this smooth bone tool and I'm going to firmly rub the sinew backing and the belly. Rubbing the belly, it's going to compress the fibers a little more. What this does, besides adding a nice shine to the wood and the sinew back, is it's, I would compare it to honing a knife. Making the wood, compressing it as much as you can, making it harder, and also the sinew. Juniper is a very soft wood. It's one thing to keep in mind if you're knocking it against trees while you're out shooting, trees, rocks, you're going to get dents. Those dents are only cosmetic. They're not really going to affect the performance of the bow unless you really get a deep one. But there's one more reason why you might want to use a modern shellac finish or something even on the wood to keep it from scratching and denting a little more. I do have one layer of grease I put into this wood. It's already been soaked in. And I'm probably going to finish it with a bit of tung oil on the back and the belly for waterproofing and to slow down the effects of dry and wet weather. Wood, even when it's pretty well sealed, it's still in time is going to dry conditions and wet conditions, or it's going to soak in and let out moisture. The biggest danger with juniper you got to keep in mind is, along with some other woods too, if you keep this up on a bow rack in your house throughout the winter time and you've got a central heating system that dries your house out to, you know, around 10% relative humidity for months at a time, this wood can get brittle. A sure sign of that is when you have a 40-pound bow that starts shooting close to 50 pounds. It's going to be as fast as it'll ever be, and that's a sign that it's too dry and could be getting brittle, and you might have an exploding bow here. What I do, have a little $15 temperature humidity meter. I find a place in the house where the humidity stays about, you know, between 40 and 60% and put it there. For me, that's under a bed in the basement of my house. It's consistent down there. If it gets really dry in the wintertime, you can get a little $30 humidifier, put it in a room with your bows. It's just a precaution for long life if you want to know how to properly store and keep a juniper bow so it lasts for many years. Okay, this bow is done. 4 inches of reflex unstrung, about 43, 44 pounds at 26-inch draw, 52 inches total length. Brain tan deer handle, sinew wrap tips, blackened with a little bit of pitch mixed with charcoal. For primitive finishes, like I say, I do pine pitch on the sinew backing and just grease on the wood. This I weatherproofed a little more. Use a few coats of tung oil on the wood, a couple coats of tung oil on the sinew, finished with a coat of shellac. That should weatherproof it pretty well. Here it is strung. With matching arrows of mock orange and Phragmites. Some without 4 shafts and some with 4 shafts. Obsidian and self points. And the matching otter skin quiver. Shooting it with a real sinew string.
All right, folks, so that is just about going to wrap things up for this video series. I want to thank my friend Chuck over at Heartwood Bows for taking you guys through this extensive bow build. As you guys can see, making a bow is a hell of a lot of work, but in the long run, it's absolutely worth it. It brings us closer to the earth, it brings us closer to what's true in life, and most importantly, it brings us closer to our ancestors. All of our ancestors used this technology at one point in time through history as a life skill. And if they weren't successful, it was literally the difference between providing for their family and their tribe or not providing. So with that, again, I want to thank you for watching. I'm Jeff with PrimitiveLifeways.com. Check out Chuck's website. That is heartwoodbows.com. He has an interesting product line that I think you guys will enjoy. We'll see you in the next one, folks.